Awesome. Welcome to the January 12th, 2023 Inspiring Author Conversations. I'm Kathy Davis, Davis Creative Publishing Partners. Today we'll be speaking with Derlene Hirtz about how to ignite your mindset. Before we welcome Derlene, I just want to remind everybody of a few logistics. The call is being recorded and you'll receive a link to the YouTube video within 48 hours, usually after this call. Please mute yourself. We've done that. Find your chat button down at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat box and I'll be watching. We're getting an echo. Let me just mute one more person. There we go. And I'll be making sure that we get your questions answered. We promise to end the call around 12 or 12:15, and that way we can all get back to the business of the day. Our theme for 2023 continues to be inspiring authors. So each month we welcome guests who are either an aspiring author or is someone who helps to inspire authors by sharing their knowledge, new ideas, opportunities, and wisdom. Help me welcome Derlene Hirtz. Derlene helps high-achieving entrepreneurs, business owners, and sales professionals who are ready to level up their success to include business, relationship, and finances. Her clients come to her when they have hit a wall and realize they have more potential and cannot reach it on their own. Derlene is the Chief Empowerment Officer at You Empowered Services. She's a Transformational Success Coach, Neuro-Linguistic Programming Trainer, and professional speaker. She's the author of the bestseller Journey of Intention. Derlene is an expert in helping transform lives to unstoppable success. She creates her intensive NLP training years. She brings her intensive NLP training, years as an educator, director of education, trainer, and transformational coach to help others gain a positive attitude, lasting motivation, increase sales, and overall more happiness and fulfillment in life and business. She is also Gigi to 4 grandchildren and wife, mom, daughter, and friend. Welcome, Derlene.
Thank you so much.
I should have rehearsed that one.
That's all right. You got the Gigi part. That's what's
that's the important part. That's right. So one of the first questions that usually crops up is, so what is NLP?
So NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Is anybody here, just by show of hands, familiar with NLP at all? Okay.
I would think Richard might be a little bit. No.
Cheryl. Oh, hi, Cheryl. It's so great to see you. So NLP is, I would tell you that it is the scientific way of saying it's the science and study of human excellence and success. So that is sort of like the catchphrase that you would use. And for me, neuro-linguistics programming is the way that you learn to communicate with yourself and others in a way that is empowering. It also is a way that we get to know ourselves kind of in an intimate way with all of our interior stuff that we carry around, and we get to release so much of it, which we'll be talking about today. And just, it is the door to get through to really attain all the happiness and fulfillment in life and your business or your profession that you seek.
Well, and in full transparency here, I want to let everybody know I did go through Derlene's program in 2021. I had to stop and think. 2021. One of the ways that I described it recently to someone was it offered me tools and processes to help bring out the best in me so that I can help bring out the best in others. And
I love that.
Yeah, feel free to use it. It's not trademarked. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you.
And what type of people typically join your, I know you have a boot camp coming up. So what type of people will typically step into your arena wanting to learn more?
So it's so interesting. It is anywhere from an entrepreneur who is just starting their business, and all the self-doubt and things like that we walk into. They'll show up. People who, like one of our students said that he's a very successful chiropractor and looked around and started comparing himself to other people in his field, and he just couldn't figure out why he wasn't where they were. And so that was really fun to teach him, to train him. And we had another lady who kept hitting a glass ceiling year after year, and she couldn't figure that out. Was doing well, just couldn't break through the ceiling. She shows up. We have had people from, we've had a woman who was very successful and then had a deep dive in her life with the death of a son, and she just could not get through a functioning day. So people who are really looking to drop the excuses, who are looking to, they know that they deserve more, and yet they can't seem to get there. And that's more in whatever it is, in whatever success means to them. So those are typically the people that.
Yeah.
That
Richard's got a great question. How is it different from psychotherapy? Or life coaching, or
life coaching
and psychotherapy. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to talk to psychotherapy because I'm not really familiar with what psychotherapy covers. As far as life coaching, with the tools of NLP that you gain, it is a different kind of life coaching, because the tools and techniques that we give are very much different than anything that I had seen out there. How is it different? That is really such a great question.
You have one of your NLP trainers is a psychotherapist. She was there Friday evening. I can't remember her name. She's a therapist.
Oh, are you talking about Tanya?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good point. Thank you. So I can tell you that she is a therapist. And I think that the whole thing about therapy, according to what she has shared and other psychologists that have come through the program, that's all about sort of like helping you get through the day, the junk in your trunk, all of those sorts of things that keep us in our little cesspool, right? And NLP is all about forward movement. It's like, okay, this is where you are. We can address this. We can help you with this. Now, where is it that you want to go? Because that's going to be our focus. That's going to be our intention. That's going to be our goals. And so we stay focused on where it is that you want to go and help you get through that junk in the trunk, if you will, in a very quick way. That's one of the things that NLP brings, is a very quick way of moving through things. And that is one of the things that she talks about a lot, is that she could have a client for 6 months and be talking, still processing with them, or she can use some of the NLP techniques and be done in a day.
And that's how I've heard her describe it too, is that it's another tool in the pocket for the psychotherapist that, and I heard her talk about how she wished she had learned this in college. But yes, it's just another resource to have in your pocket, whether you're a therapist, a life coach, or a human.
Yeah. And I'm going to throw even an educator, because I am an educator. And when I first got into this, that was my dream, was to get into the education system and share NLP with them. And because I know the whole communication aspect of this is a life changer. And, the system needs an overhaul in Derlene's perception. I think I've got the tools for it. I also know nobody's really interested. So,
well, even from the educator, from your educational background,
right? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, and so let's talk about some of the successes that you have seen come out of your program. And you have an introductory program, and then it's, help my memory here, 6 additional classes for additional training after that, correct?
So with boot camp, and then you have 5 additional trainings.
5, okay.
The boot camp is really an introduction of, I like to call it pulling back the curtain and showing you who you could choose to really be, if that's what you so desire. And then all the training starts in all of our levels or certification trainings for NLP. And we just keep pulling back that curtain further and further and further and further until, I don't know, Kathy, we take you to a cliff and kind of dangle you over it and then say, oh, wait, we can get you back here.
Yeah, don't jump. Well, and I can say from firsthand experience that, how it has helped my business was, I had hit, a point where my business was only growing to a certain level, and I couldn't figure out how come I can't get beyond this one imaginary cap that's there. And for me, when I went through, and actually in full transparency, both myself and my husband have been, Jack, many of you know Jack, has been through the program also. And it, for me, and I can only speak for me, is the program is a confidence builder. It helps, it made me go beyond the self-imposed limits that I had set, and allowed me to step out of what had been my norm for a long time. And there are ways that I use it in my business in working with my clients. And there are ways that I use it as a Gigi, as a grandma. I have fun with, little things with my grandchildren. We've talked about watching the eye patterns, and in our home, we actually have an eye pattern chart underneath our TV, and even the grandchildren have gotten to where they start watching people's eyes. So it's, whether they're doing it correctly doesn't matter. It's just, they're having fun with it. But you see them watching you, they're 8 and 11, and you see them watching you like, are they looking at my eye patterns? But it's a way of, it was funny, we were trying to come up with new acronyms for NLP one day, and one of them, I think, was like new life practices. It just gives you new tools for moving your life beyond where it is or where it was at that time. I know you've had people move on from your programs and build new businesses. So Ryan Ballheimer built his entire landscaping company, a former financial planner.
Yep. He was a stockbroker. Yeah, for sure. When you talk about success stories, that's exactly why I do this, because I am a success story of NLP. I started, back, I don't know, 10 years ago, I think it was. I hit a wall emotionally, spiritually, physically. I was flying high, and all the things. And now when I can look back and see the perspective that I was viewing everything through, I just happened to be in a toxic environment professionally. And I didn't realize it, because what happens when you're around toxicity, the more you get in, the more it feeds you, the more you become that, right? And so that's how I found NLP, was through my desire to become, I don't know, different than who I was. I just knew I couldn't stay there. And I had never, ever, ever dreamed of being a business owner or an entrepreneur, because that wasn't even spoken about in our home. We were, 9-to-5ers. We worked for the man, that kind of thing. And when I told my father that I was going to have my own business and become an entrepreneur, all he said to me 3 times was, "I'm so glad you have a roof over your head. I'm so glad you have a roof over your head." 3 times he repeated that to me. And that was such an eye-opener for me. I was so thankful that I had the tools of NLP then, because it would have just devastated me. And I was just like, and that's his map of reality. And he chooses not to shift that, right? And that's fine for who he is. It's just that I don't have to buy into that anymore. So that's,
well, I hear that a lot. That word shift is not only in the trainings, but when people are talking about the success, when other people who've been through the programs talk about the success that they have found. One of the other women here in St. Louis, Misha, I don't remember what Misha was doing prior to going through NLP, but I know now she has 2, if not 3. 2. What do you call it? Bungee exercise fitness locations in St. Louis.
Yeah, she's a really incredible success story. She was a personal trainer, and she had a small environment that she was working in. And once she started dreaming about this bungee fitness and bringing it to St. Louis and all that, it has just been incredible for her. And I think probably my gift is that I mean, the gifts that I receive from this is that I get to watch all of this just unfold, and just watching that with her, like you said, Ryan, having our therapist shift her business like she's been able to do. It's just been incredible to watch that. and then watch, the chiropractor that I was talking about earlier. One of the things that I don't want to mention his name because of what I'm about ready to say to you, but one of the things that he realized was that, he was on marriage number 4, actually divorce number 4. And what he realized that he was marrying the same person time after time after time again, just with a different face. And it was because he was never growing. He only knew what he knew. And here's the really cool thing that I think that like I get the chills just thinking about this. What he discovered was somewhere in his life, somebody was not his hero for him. And so his neurology took that on and stored it as, I will be the hero. So he married women who needed a hero in their life. And once they got over there, yeah. And once he grew through that and did all the work and everything, he was like, oh my gosh, I just didn't ever realize that. And then that shows up in his business. What does he do? He's a chiropractor. What is he for people? He's a hero for everybody, and so once he could put all of that together and learn and grow from that, it's just amazing.
Well, and one of the other fun things that I have seen, you have different generations that have come through your program. It may start with, and I've seen it where it started with a daughter, and then she involved the mother, and then we go back and we pick up one of the sons. And so it's been an amazing process to watch a family go through. And I know you've had more than just Jack and I as a couple. We went through at different times, which I would highly suggest for people to do. Don't go through together. And you've had other couples that have gone through also.
Yeah, that's so true. And you make a great point on the young girl that went through for an entirely different reason. She walked in for kind of life purposes and had a major shift at home. Her mom was kind of like, in 8 days, who is this? Who is this daughter of mine? She's communicating with me. She's not being so mean to the stepfather, so all these things, and so she's like, I want what she's got. And so she came kind of for life and business reasons. She's become a coach. It has just been incredible watching that. And I love the thought that the younger the people that are in there, like I love somebody in there between 25, 32, because they can gain my experience and I can save them. If they so choose to take the training for what we offer it, they can like skip the 20 years of craziness in my life.
The rest of us went through. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I believe very much in the struggle. I believe that very much. It's just that we can give them some tools that will help them deal with that struggle better. So,
well, and the fact that then think of the ripple effect on additional generations that haven't even been born yet. And
yes.
That restructuring of that mental consciousness.
Yep. And that's probably why, like when we have our older people, this next training that's coming up next week is it's kind of an older class. And what I love about that then is that we don't give up on ourselves. Right. I think one of the saddest days is when I had a woman actually say to me, I'm 66 years old. There's nothing left for me. Like I wanted to cry when she said that. I'm like, girlfriend, are you dead? Because that's when you could quit growing. We've had somebody as old as 83 come through the program because she still so much believed in herself and her desire to grow. It's just amazing. I'm going to be working with a nun in February. I mean, how cool is that?
Oh, how fun. Well, in full disclosure, you came out of the Catholic school education system. You were a teacher and principal, right?
I was a teacher, and then I was a director of religious education, which I worked primarily with the kids in the evening. I was kind of the principal of the school, if you will, in the evening. And so all of that has been a great foundation for me to actually be working with Cheryl on my next book. And the gift of all of the learnings. And I'm not going to say those learnings have all been pretty. I'm not going to say that at all. But I'm going to tell you they've been beautiful in terms of my ability to have a window of growth, for sure.
Yeah. Well, one of the questions we got from Beth is, what could the program do for 74-year-old me? So I joined the program, I think, when I was 64, 65. And I can't remember. I might have been the oldest one in class. I can't remember. There was a gentleman there in real estate. He might have been older than I. But I had hit a point, Beth, to kind of answer your question. I had hit a point, not only in business, but it's like I was just trying to find something that I enjoyed doing in life, just what was worth waking up the next morning and what was the stall, what was keeping me from that. And that's what it did for me, was it helped me figure out what I kept tripping over and then learn to walk around it or hop over it or, just not see it anymore. And that's what it did for me.
Right. And I would even suggest that because I was there, obviously, for all of your training, that you learned how to move through it.
Yeah.
It's not staying stuck in it. It's moving through it, learning the lessons attached to it, which for you were some very, very valuable lessons that you could have just never even imagined. And Beth, things happen to us in our life that we aren't even aware of it, but our neurology stores it in a way that it stagnates us. And once we start becoming curious about, that's my favorite word, is curiosity. Once we start becoming curious about, well, what is this? What does this mean? And I'll give you a couple of personal examples. My dad, when I was a kid, probably the only time I ever remember him having my brother, my sister, and myself having a conversation, kind of like a real conversation. My dad wasn't a real, he was a military guy, I'll put it that way. And he looked at my sister and he says, "Oh my gosh, you are so smart. There is nothing in the world that you can't achieve. You're just so smart." And he looks at my brother and he goes, "And you are as equally as intelligent, and you're a boy, and boys have special, privileges and blah, 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 blah." And he looks at me and he goes, "And Derl," he goes, "you always have the greatest smile and you are always so happy." And I'm like, and where's the intelligence part? And what he could not know, because it was something that had happened that I had never discussed out loud. I'm in first grade, through an experience that happened, I just considered myself dumb. And so that was buried so deeply in my neurology when my dad said that. And I just wanted him to acknowledge my intelligence, my brilliance. And instead I got happy and smiles a lot. And so from that, I carried that around in a negative space for so long. I'm dumb, I'm dumb, I'm dumb, right? And I kept proving it over and over again to myself how dumb I was. And then whenever I went through NLP, that memory came back and I was thinking, wait a minute, my dad saw inside of me something that was my brilliance, is that I was always a happy person. I was always the one that people could come to and just be in my space. And at least I would somehow make them smile, right? By who I am. And once I own that, he might not have seen my brilliance in geometry, which in transparency, I still haven't seen that come through, but whatever. That's a whole nother conversation. But once I could own that, I can't even begin to tell you how, people would say to me, "Oh my gosh, you're always so positive." And I would take that as a bad thing, because that's the way they would say it, because that was their map of reality. They were like circling around in negativity, I guess. And now I'm like, you bet, I am a happy person. I am a positive person. I bring that energy with me, because that is, number one, who I believe I'm called to be, and number two, who it is that I choose to be. Both of those things.
And the interesting thing that I've also seen in the classes is you have both males and females that join the classes. And it's not, what would you say the percentage is? I was trying to think back at my class. We had quite a few males at one point in that class in the beginning.
Yeah, it's interesting because it seems to cycle. So I think that I attract males who are not ran by their ego. Because that would be I don't know. That's kind of a conflict of who I am, I think. So I don't attract those alpha. That's what I think I was trying to say, is that I don't attract alpha males. So I attract these men who want growth, right? Who see something that, I don't know, maybe we hold space for them so they can explore that I don't know, the emotional side of who they are. So it's so much fun when they come in. And then the women are, I'm going to say maybe just a few more women than men, but it kind of depends on the class, Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just kind of depends on the class.
Yeah. But I think overall, you may have a few less men than women, but overall they're pretty close. You know, if you were to do a total.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I've seen people join the classes who have their own businesses and are just trying to get that business to grow. I have seen people who may be working for others, and by going through class, they've decided, oh, I'd really rather be doing something else. I'm going to start my own business. And the reason I invited you in how this pertains or affects authors is quite often we'll find that with authors can sometimes hit a point of not being able to finish a book or start a book. Or one of the analogies I used one time when someone said, well, you know, what was it like going through NLP? It was like you start out being stuck in quicksand, and then all at once you realize you can hop out yourself and get out of that quicksand and move on, and not necessarily wait for someone to help pull you out. Although there are people there that can help do that, but you've got to want to do it yourself. And sometimes with authors, we run into that, and Cheryl is fantastic at helping us, you know, as a writing coach. And Pam, I know you've experienced this too. You and I have talked about this, that sometimes the stumbling block is just knowing how to get out of the quicksand. And NLP can be a tool to do that. Yeah.
Yes, I so agree with you, because it is, I think so many things happen when you're writing a book. Imposter syndrome. How can I possibly add value? How can my story add value? How can my imagination help somebody? Whatever that is. And we can get stuck in that. That's where I would get stuck, is like, how in the world can I say something that is going to really help somebody change their life, right? How is that little book called Journey of Intention going to do that? And when I wrote that book, my one goal was to have one person not associated with me, you know, not like one of my friends calling me and saying, hey, but one person just say, I saw myself in what you wrote. And if you can do it, I know I can. And I got that email from Ohio one time.
Wow.
And I just thought, this is all worth it, right? Because the one thing that happens is when we tell our stories, my story might be just like yours, Richard, very similar, but it's never through our experiences are so different. Our filtering system is so different. Our wisdom that we derive from those situations are so different. You know, that's why you can look at your sibling at Thanksgiving and they're telling a story. And you're like, that is not how that happened. And you're like, yes, it is. And you start getting into all the squabbling, right? And it's because how we filter things our filter, our experience, our wisdom, all equals our perception. And we just perceive differently. I have identical twin granddaughters, and oh my gosh, already, you know, they're 4.5, and I always say they're my greatest metaphors for my training, because I just watch it on a daily basis, how they've just become so different, right? And they have spent 98% of their life together, you know?
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. Now, occasionally someone will ask me, so, you know, I was in the program in 21, and do I still use those tools and processes that I learned? What do you hear from other people? I know I keep you up to date on what I go through, but.
Yeah. And I think that one of the really cool things is that, so we've created a tribe, right? Anybody that's gone through the program, we create a tribe together so that they have reminders, right? At any time they can pick up the phone and call each other and say, hey, you know, this day it's just really gotten out of hand. What's going on? And we just might say to them, so what is the purpose of you not even wanting to focus today? Right. And then process that with them. And that's one of the really cool things. Or, you know, I think one of the times that I was amused at my training, and I mean, it seems so simple, and yet it wasn't in terms of the impact, but I had gone through a process called timeline therapy, and it's anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. That's our gestalt, how we store those negative emotions. And after I worked on anger, I was getting on the highway one day. I was going to Toastmasters, actually, and I had my mom on the phone. That's usually when I talk to my parents when I'm in my car. They live in Austin. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just bet you traffic's going to be backed up because, you know, I'm running late, you know, and all the things. And typical, the way that I was imprinted in my life was, yeah, there's just a bunch of idiots on the highway, you know, kind of like that. And sure enough, I went to get on the highway and it was completely stopped. And I went, oh my gosh, they're completely stopped. And I started laughing. And my mom's like, what is so funny? I go, Mom, it looks like me and 300 of my closest friends are going to be journeying this together. And reality is, if I take responsibility, I'm the one that walked out of my house 15 minutes late. Yeah. And she was like, that doesn't sound like you. And then I felt that, right? That I thought that's whenever you get rid of all that, the original, for lack of a better way of saying it, the first significant emotional events that triggers these negative emotions in us, once you deal with that, it just realigns your neurology to where you can be amused by sitting in traffic, knowing that there's nothing like a good book to download. That's kind of my go-to, right? Is just download a good book and sit there with all your buddies, because really, there's nothing you can do about it.
Nothing you know, that's it. Yeah. Well, yeah. And from having gone through the program, one of the things that, and the story that I mentioned with you was, I've been on phone with authors who have shared their stories, and sometimes they're difficult stories to have lived through. And I can remember one point where I remember this little voice in my head said, oh my gosh, this author was telling me her story, and I could tell she was getting pretty involved in going back to being an abused child, and was returning back to being that child during our conversation. And in my head, at first I thought, holy crap, is what I said. I'm not trained to handle this. I don't know what to do. And then all at once, these voices in this script came out of my head that I had learned by going through the program with Derlene's trainers. And it was like, well, maybe I do know what to say to this woman. And I was able to get her out of being fearful and back into reality, as into today. And so I never know when it's going to come out and allow me to use it, but it's been an amazing process for me to experience that and go, oh, I really do know what to say here, or I really do know how to handle this. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that our training is all, not all, but it's at an unconscious level. Mm-hmm. And that's where we learn, at an unconscious level. And Richard, that might be part of the answer to your question about how is that different from therapy, is that all of our training is, we understand that our conscious brain runs 10% of our life. Our unconscious brain runs 90% of our life. Now, most people think the opposite just because they just don't know any better. And so whenever those things happen, those traumatic childhoods happen, it's buried so deeply unconsciously. And then what happens is it's our go-to. Well, I can't be successful because, I was so traumatized as a child because of my father, or, my drug addicted mother, or whatever. And anytime we say that but or because, we're taking ourselves back into a story that no longer serves us. And reality is, I believe with every bit of my being, when those things happen to us, we can use them for the good to help somebody else. I'm getting the chills even saying this, because we can never see those traumatic events as the gifts that they could truly be to help somebody. Because the number one thing, if they are telling us their story, or somebody is telling my story, I just went through this with one of my clients last week, I know that they're survivors. And how empowering is that to say, somehow I lived through hell and I am a survivor. And once you can just find one little thing that empowers you, one little statement that you can take responsibility for, it is so empowering. And then the rest of the work can be done, you know? So yes, for sure. And a lot of times when, and actually the therapist that we were talking about, she came from a very traumatic childhood and was still carrying that around as a therapist. And one of the great shifting moments in her life was when she quit owning the trauma part of her story and started using it as a means to helping other people. It just set her practice on fire because she could now communicate so much differently because she was so empowered by her story instead of disempowered.
Mm-hmm. I know one of the common denominators that I see in a lot of the graduates that come out of the program is the fact that they now take their lives or their business to the next level. Mm-hmm. What would you attribute that to?
Well, getting out of our way. I mean, when we have that self-belief, that I know that I can be the white Oprah. If I so choose to be the white Oprah, I can do that. To know that I can really do that. And when I just said that to you, there was absolutely no hesitation in my voice whatsoever. And so if we are really going to level up the way I would say it, our lives, we get to go back and we get to kind of clean up stuff, right? The whole conversation with my dad, my mom one time telling me that only Colonel's kids are, that's the rich kids. That's where they get everything they want and all of that. And my mom telling me that I picked up a money scarcity issue. I picked up a lack of worthiness issue off of that. Oh, well, we're an NCO in the military. That means I'm a poor kid. That means I have a ceiling on who I am. I mean, I could go on. I carried that around all the way until I was 50 years old, And so cleaning up all of that, we do truly become unstoppable because we have shifted our mindset to where, like, when I think about that now with my mom, I'm amused that I get that that's her map of reality. I totally get that. And then I'm a little bit amused to think that she actually said to me that they actually could have 2 puppy dogs at one time because they were rich. I mean, that's like funny to me now, right? But it wasn't so funny at one time, So right. I think that is the real gift of NLP is learning how to change your states immediately, going just like when I saw that traffic, shifting my state to one of amusement. And the reality was I made the choice to be late. And, I love being able to do that. And then in those moments where I maybe don't jump onto it fast enough, I know one thing's for certain, I have got the tools and I keep myself surrounded by people who have those tools as well. So that it's not that 20-year cycle of disempowerment.
Yeah, I know the couple common denominators that I see is it helps bring out clarity and it helps bring out confidence.
Confidence for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking about when I worked for the Catholic Church. I probably would not have worked for them too long had I had this skill set, mostly because of the confidence and mostly owning my voice and honoring my voice. I'm pretty sure I probably would have been fired long ago.
So
just
Richard,
because I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to pull Richard in if you wanted to unmute yourself. You had a comment that you just posted.
Which part? Which one?
The last one, the part about the small part doesn't.
The question that was, I think Pam asked is, what does she mean by own your trauma? And, again, to disclose my truth, I was a 26 private practice psychotherapist, and I do a lot of other things now. But what it is that too often people live their wounds, they live their trauma. And what we really mean by that is to own it is only a portion of who you are. If you keep picking that scab, it never heals and it dominates you. But to own it is to say, this is a part of my life, but a small part, but it does not define me. It's that freedom of saying, this is a part, it is my journey. It's like being in your coffin when you're dead. You're all going to have black and blue marks and scars and stitches, but it's only a part of the big body part that doesn't have any wounds, that lived a joyful life.
Yeah.
My cut on it, though.
Yeah, I so agree with you, Richard. And then to tag on like the NLP portion of that and that timeline therapy, when we go back and look at those situations, they are for positive lessons only positive lessons. It's not about, your parent being a jerk or, whatever. It is only positive lessons. And I will share with you, one of my really good friends in NLP lives out in California. She discovered, when I met her, she was about 60 years old. And she discovered when she was 30 years old that she had 16 different parts to her. 16 different personalities to her through just a very traumatic, probably the worst that I've ever known, right? And I was sitting there watching her go through timeline therapy, and then I got to actually work with her on the breakthrough on it. And when she went back to that time, the time when her unconscious mind had revealed to her when this happened, when she went through there and she settled on she worked on the positive lessons about you and you only. We always say positive in nature and only about you. When she got finished, we had written a page and a half of all of the things that she literally was realigning her neurology in front of us. When she would say, I'm small, but I'm mighty. You can't keep me down. I am a survivor. I am the toughest, woman I know. And I mean, just all these things that we just kept writing down. We were like the class was silent for a minute. They were just like stunned at watching that. And so now that trauma part of her story, she knows, like you said, Richard, that doesn't define her other than in empowering ways. Oh yeah, that's when I learned that I'm a survivor. That's when I learned I can, really hold my breath. That's when I learned, and so that has become a very empowering part of her life, instead of the thing that kept her in that cycle of I don't know, it was just a horrible.
But what I like about what you just said, I think one of the biggest issues, both more so for men have a lot more difficulty dealing with emotions. I think you found that, at least that's why I launched what I'm doing professionally. But what it is for a man and a woman to be able to stand up with confidence and conviction and say, I am a man amongst men, equal yet different, and I'm okay. The same for women. I'm a woman amongst women and I'm different, but I'm okay. And to live that truth, and I call it the naked truth, to really feel comfortable in your nakedness is truly freedom. It's saying, not like me, but I like me. And I'll find people by being out in the world, and I will attract people to my naked truth. They're the ones I care about.
Oh, I love that, Richard. I love that so much, because that is so very true. It's sort of like, I always say, when I can live my life 100% saying, your opinion of me is none of my business. When I can do that 100%. And I would say that I'm probably, in transparency, about 95% there. I still have
But you know what? We do care about the people we care about, because there may be some truth. It's the people. I mean, I care if my wife doesn't like me. I care if my sons don't like me.
No.
Yeah, I mean, really. I don't mean to sideline this, but I sent you my email. I'd love to send you this podcast interview I did to understand what I think might help you working with some of the men you work with. So
okay, yeah, I'll listen to it. Thank you so much.
Email me.
Okay.
Well, and from an individual perspective, one of the things that I now find pretty humorous, and Derlene, you may remember this, in going through part of the process early on, I found that I was triggered by black patent shoes. Now, when you do that now,
Catholic.
it's like, well, why would that be anything that would be a trigger? But, having gone through the process, and then I happen to be one of those people that I process while I sleep. And so I woke up in the middle of the night after that exercise with this huge aha. I now know why those black patent and it didn't matter who was wearing them. It was just black patent shoes was a trigger for me, a not good trigger. I would shut down emotionally. And I didn't know that in my everyday life, that I'm walking around and every time any human being is wearing black patent shoes, I closed up. And that was just, and we're laughing now because it sounds silly, but at the time it was like, holy crap, you know, something as little as that can keep you in the quicksand. But now that I see them, I go, oh, hi, thank you for showing up again. How you doing? You know, you just kind of keep on moving through the black patent shoes. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
So does anybody, Beth, I love this comment. Catholic girls know all about patent leather shoes. Yeah.
And let me tell you, Beth, and Cheryl will laugh when I say this because she knows me. When you're a very literal person, extremely literal person, and you grow up in a faith that is very black patent leather shoe oriented, you really do have a lot of, for me personally, let me own that. I had a lot of cleanup to do. And still, who knows? I mean, who knows what my unconscious mind is going to reveal to me, right? We're onions, right? And I'm a very literal person. So when they said it, I believed it, and bottom line. And so, yeah, I thought that comment was hilarious when you said that. Thank you. Yeah.
And so, yeah, Richard, we do. And Richard, if you want to send me that link, you and I will talk, and I can add that to one of my e-news that goes out, and I'll send information out about that. But Derlene, so I know you have a gift or a download for our guests today. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was just a little workbook called The Power of No. In my experience, and Richard, you can talk for the men. Women have a very hard time saying no because we're designed to say yes to everything. Mm-hmm. And the power that comes from saying no is just amazing. And I think it's about, I don't know, 6 pages long that I would love to gift you guys with. Just finding yourself in a situation, saying no is, I always say, I lived out in California for 4 years, and I always joke that when I got in my car and I started driving, I just said, no, 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 all the way to California. And then I realized that my no is somebody else's yes. You know, I got into volunteerism, which I loved, because somebody said no, and I got to say yes to that. And then I got to say no to be somebody else's yes, you know? And so just 2 different ways of looking at how it is that can be so empowering.
No, I love that. And I don't even need to ask the question about what wisdom would you like to leave us with today? Because that was an awesome story about the no, no, no. Yeah. And I know now you wake up a lot with the yes, yes, yes. So it's an amazing. But thank you, Derlene, for being with us here today. Is there anything else you'd like to add that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Oh, no, because you know that I could talk for at least days on end. And I suspect if Richard and I had a conversation, that could probably go on for years on end.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure the 2 of you got to meet. So that's awesome. And just remind everybody that there will be a link to the recording going out and a link to Derlene's free download. You'll get that in the next 24 to 48 hours. We have 2 guests coming up in February, and one is about running a more efficient business, and the second one is on podcasting. So it's the 2nd and 4th Thursdays of the month at 11:30. I hope to see you there. If you have any questions about anything, just give me a shout out. Thank you, everybody, for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank
Kathy.
you.
Thanks,
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.